Hello, everyone, and welcome to Phishing 2.0, stopping the next wave of cyber attacks even pros can't catch. Now, I'm going to be joined here by a couple of special guests, and we're going to introduce them in a moment. But before we do that, we're going to start with a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to be covering today some real-world examples of modern phishing attacks, where and when internal training and anti-phishing tools tend to fail. We're going to give you some guidance or some advice on what types of tools or training options or other things can you do to start combating these modern phishing attempts. So let me introduce our guests. Today, joining us, we've got AJ Nash, who is the VP and Distinguished Fellow of Intelligence with ZeroFox.
Hey, Chris. Nice to be here.
Excellent, AJ. Thank you. And Josh Holbein, the Information Security Lead with Centrix IT.
Hey, Chris. Hey, AJ.
Hey, man.
All right. So this is going to be kept very conversational, guys. As we go through, feel free to, I'm going to direct the questions to one or the other of you, and I'm going to give each of you a chance to respond as well. So as we go through, definitely feel free to comment or add to each other's conversations. Even if you want to argue a point, absolutely. So we're here to really dig in, and yeah, absolutely. AJ's ready to go there. So starting off, I'm going to share a little bit of the kind of a level set on where we're at technology-wise. We just had a huge boom in technology from a generative AI perspective. Some of you out there might be gamers. I know Josh is and will know this reference. If you are familiar with the game Skyrim, here's an example of where generative AI is taking the world, and we're going to talk about how this makes for a really scary kind of future for us. There is a ChatGPT-enabled Skyrim VR experience, and it brings all of your favorite NPCs truly to life. There's 3 different tools that were integrated in here. One is a tool that's going to convert your voice to text. It's going to feed that into ChatGPT, and then it's going to output that in the voice of each NPC. We're going to share that video link with you. Check it out. Even if you're not a gamer, the amazing part of this is think about, if you were watching a TV show, if you're playing a video game, however you're taking in your favorite media, you've got your favorite characters, everything is scripted. This goes off script. You're going to see in that video how the person is interacting with different NPCs in the world of Skyrim. Those NPCs are responding to questions that are not scripted. They fed a background into the generative AI platform, and that agent is able to feed out responses in the voice of those characters. Now, you're going to also see that the technology is a little bit slow to respond right now. But keep this in mind as we start to talk about where phishing attempts have evolved to so far and where it could go next. The next thing you might be getting a phone call from your favorite actor or actress in their voice trying to convince you to do something. And it's going to sound very authentic. That's where the technology is going to enable threat actors to get to. So on that, we're going to start off our first conversation here talking about where has AI-augmented phishing kind of evolved to already. It's not quite at the fully immersive, bring any character to life, fully interactive yet, but we've got some interesting new examples that really kind of, they've upped the ante here. So, Josh, I'm going to throw this one to you first. Tell us a little bit about some of the fresh examples of AI-generated phishing attacks that we're seeing now.
Yeah, the first and foremost of the ChatGPT, they do have safeguards in place, but they're pretty easily broken or gotten around with minimal effort. But the biggest thing is it's able to generate phishing emails that don't have the typos, that don't have the misspellings or the grammar errors that we're used to seeing. But that was one of the number one giveaways. Well, clearly this person doesn't speak English or it's their second language or it just doesn't make sense. So clearly it's fake. It's pretty easy just to go put that script into ChatGPT, cleans all that up. And now it looks like a way more authentic email.
So I'm not going to get free money from Nigerian princes anymore?
Not anymore. If you did before.
Did you before?
Yeah.
I kept trying, but for some reason the money never got to me. I don't know why,
And
but
I'm sure it was
I gave them
very
my bank
close.
account.
It wasn't an email, but we had a scam fax, and there was a guy that was claiming to be from Africa, and not only was he selling the cure for COVID, but he also was selling Rolex watches and old Cisco gear. So, I mean, I would get a hold of that.
There's a Renaissance man, right? Gotta like that. Gotta like that. Who diversifies his business a little bit,
All right, AJ, what kind of fresh new examples are you seeing threat actors using in their phishing attempts?
I Josh hit it right. We're certainly seeing an improvement in phishing right now. I don't think we've seen the full leap yet. It's early. I think threat actors are starting to figure these things out, but we're certainly seeing much more well-crafted pieces. I think we're seeing more well-crafted pieces. It's not just phishing. Obviously, that's the topic for today, but also I think romance scams, for instance. But we're going to see it in a lot of places. So we're starting to see that, and it does make it more difficult to identify. As Josh said, obviously from human component, some phishing emails are so poorly structured it's easy to see. But also from the machine component, you can certainly set machines up to look for issues in communication that clearly show this is not non-native speaking. There's some other flaws that go with there, and this is eliminating some of that. So we're definitely seeing some improvements in the authorship of phishing emails so far.
All right, so we have our first question from the audience. Jose's got a question here. How nervous should my internal stakeholders be on QR phishing? QR phishing. That's always a fun one. I read it was possible, but it doesn't seem like a real risk to do an alert or training on. If I'm wrong, which it could be, how do I even block it on managed endpoints? So I'm going to take a first stab at the last part of your question, Jose, because I do know that there are, on the mobile device at least, there's a number of technologies that help with protecting against QR phishing attempts. Mobile threat defense, like you would find in a lot of MDM technologies like Ivanti, the mobile threat defense capabilities do have the ability to protect against QR phishing attempts as well. Guys, anything that you would give to somebody to try to frame up the yes, QR phishing is a real thing, it is a concern, like what would you give for guidance on that?
My go-to is just training. There was I did encounter one of these in the wild. I was out on a trail run in a park, a remote area, and there was a big old paper on the side of a building that said free Wi-Fi with a QR code. I knew, it wasn't obviously I know this is going to happen. I had to scan it anyway. The curiosity got the better of me. But I fully intending this could completely wreck my phone. I knew the consequences going into it, and it brought me to the Rickroll YouTube video. Delightful. I loved it.
Nice.
Totally like Warner Brothers with free, what is it? Free steak or ice cream or whatever. And it's like a box and a stick, and you're going to get trapped.
Exactly.
I can't resist. It looks delicious.
It was either it was 50-50 Rickroll or my bank account's compromised.
I love the Rickroll. That's good.
That's a good turn on that. But
it's not always going to be that. So it's just, it comes down to the training and knowing that. I scanned it knowing the risks, and I chose to do that. I don't have any company data on my phone. It's all personal. I use the different passwords for everything. So the risk for me scanning that is pretty low. Worst case, I reset some passwords, it breaks my phone, I get a new phone. It could have sucked, but wouldn't have been the end of it, but just training.
So Josh, I know that some of us are old enough to know Looney Tunes references, which is what I'm going to throw out. But for you millennials and zennials that you may not know this reference, if not, go check out your Looney Tunes greatest hits. But I just envisioned Josh out there in the middle of the desert and this Wi-Fi sign sticking up there with the coyote standing behind it, like free Wi-Fi here.
Exactly. Exactly. It's totally a Wile E. Coyote
thing,
way, 100%.
No way there's free Wi-Fi out here in the desert. No,
totally. But the thing about it is, Josh makes a point. We've been doing this for things all along, right? Don't pick up thumb drives and shove them in your computer.
Right.
How long have we been telling people to do that, right? Just don't. It's kind of just that simple. Just don't. But it's okay. If I saw a hamburger on the ground, I'm not just going to pick it up and eat it. That's probably a bad idea. I'm just going to go ahead and leave that alone, right? I didn't need the free Wi-Fi 30 seconds ago. Why do I need to get it now? Right. I don't need another thumb drive. I have thumb drives. Just don't, just it's kind of simple, unfortunately.
All right, AJ, then how about this? You go to your favorite bar, your favorite burger spot. On the table, there's a QR code that says scan for the menu.
Yep. That's why I have suckers I go to dinner with.
I mean, that's,
Hey,
that's,
why don't you
that's
scan
honestly,
the menu with your phone?
Yep.
That's right. That's why I go to dinner with salespeople. Right? I'm like, hey, why don't you go ahead and scan that and let me know what we're having for dinner.
So that's a great way to go through that too. All right,
that's a good point, though.
We are gonna come back to the training topic though, Josh, because I know that's right up your alley. So, all right. Let's talk about a couple of other. I like the authentic example there, but let's talk about a couple of other ones because I know AJ, you've encountered a couple of interesting kind of new takes on the. I know a lot of people have encountered the hey, found a jump drive in the parking lot, whatever. What are some of the other ones that are now being used?
Well, that's a good one. I mean, the jump drive one's been around forever, right? So there's always those, right? Whenever there's something that's too good to be true, something that somebody says they're giving away for free, you should just be skeptical, right? That's just not how the world works. People see things all the time on social media. Email is the same, right? Where somebody, you just click on this, it's an amazing new thing, or it's a news story that is going to blow the lid off of something, but you're the one that's getting it for some reason. Like, you're not that special. I tell people that all the time. If wow, 90% off PS5s and they just came out, yeah, it's probably not real. Like, that's not happening. That's not how this works. And you're not special. My goodness, the breaking story against the politician that I just coincidentally don't like anyway, that's going to change the world. But it's not on any of the news networks from either side. Pick one, doesn't matter. It's probably not real. We see a lot of those things coming down the pipe. Certainly anytime there's a new world event that draws interest, it automatically becomes a phishing campaign, like almost instantly. COVID-19 obviously was a huge one. How it is every year coming around with that. The politics, have constantly led to those opportunities. I'm sure, although I haven't seen them yet personally, I'm sure there's Chat GPT phishing campaigns that are about Chat GPT, like that are using that topic, right? So very meta. But the truth of the matter is, whenever something shows up and it's too good to be true, either too good because it just aligns so perfectly with what you want to be true, frankly, or so earth-shattering that you'd think it would be all over the news, but it's just you, or the price is just unbelievable. Yeah, it's not. It's not going to be real. You're going to be a sucker. And, some of us choose to be suckers anyway because you just can't resist. Or like Josh said, some of us, we go, hey, I know it could be dangerous, but I just want to know. That's cool. Have the curiosity. But, you have to assume that you're not that special. We're just not. Like, I'm not the first guy to get this amazing opportunity. So, I try to remind people of that. What do you got, Josh?
I was going to say the best one that I've ever come across that I personally would fall for. I couldn't resist it. And I believe this was part of a Know Before campaign. But the one where it sends an attachment with a photo and it says, hey, there's a dog in the parking lot. Is this anybody's? Like, I'm clicking on that picture. I'll go through the headers and hopefully the safe attachments is working. There's technical controls, but if none of those are in place and it came from like the office manager, for example, that one would more than likely get me. I'll be honest, right there.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And obviously anything we see in the business email compromise space, right? It's still really popular. It's, it appears to be coming from a C-level executive. And, it's the high pressure. I need you to pay this invoice right away. We see lots of those. Business email compromise is not infinitely, but exponentially worse than phishing than ransomware in terms of the damage it causes annually financially. It doesn't get nearly as much play, I think, in the media, but business email compromise is exponentially more damaging than ransomware. It's really, really effective. And a lot of it really is because of cultural, corporate cultural issues of just not having a corporate culture where it's okay to push back. And so we see a lot of success with those. I think those are really going to improve with synthetic media, not just ChatGPT even, but also the audio and video. You've got the email right now from the CEO saying, pay this right away or you're fired kind of a thing, which is somewhat compelling. But even as you build countermeasures to that, say, okay, we're allowed to challenge the CEO, in these ways. Well, when that turns into a Zoom call from the CEO, video, audio, the whole bit, I'm pretty sure those bills are going to get paid. So, we're going to see a big leap forward there in what is already the most financially damaging, threat vector ever. So, from an academic standpoint, I'm kind of excited to see how it looks. From a financial standpoint, from a business standpoint, I don't think it's a very good thing, though.
So that's a really good point. I think this gets into the broader spectrum. So phishing, like there's, I've shown people how to just Google how many different types of phishing there are. I mean, top of your head: phishing, spearphishing, whale phishing. BECs are kind of breaking out from some of those as like their own distinct variation. Smishing, vishing. I mean, you could go on. how do you try to tackle all the fishes? I mean, there's a lot of fishes out there now, right? So when you get, and Josh, I think this leads us nicely into the training topic. When you're trying to help people understand all the different types of phishing and addressing that, one, how do you go about it? And two, what are you seeing as kind of the falling off point? Like, where are people's training programs failing to try to train people to deal with all the fishes?
The first thing that comes to mind, is for the security nerds is the defense in depth. It comes from your technical controls, the processes, and my favorite part is the training. And asking where it falls off, I can ask you guys. We've all had to do the corporate training, and you get a video every month, and you have to watch this video. And I have 3 screens, and I put it on this screen over here, and I continue to work on this screen, and the video plays in the background, or I just hit next. Yep, good. Okay, what did I learn from that video? Absolutely nothing. But I checked off the compliance check mark. I watched the video. I get the sample phishing to my email. Like, okay, yep, that's pretty obvious. Cool, don't click on it. All right, I passed. So within 10 seconds, I have completed my compliance recommended training. And according to the audit, that's good. But if you ask me, it's not good. You're not setting your business and your employees up for success with that. And one thing I'm passionate about is breaking that stereotype of the system admin or the IT guy hiding in the server room. Not really. He's doing his own thing. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. When it comes to cybersecurity, I mean, you've got to be on the forefront. You have to communicate and engage with the other departments because it affects everybody from the CEOs down to the interns. So training, I feel, needs to be more interactive. You need to gamify it rather than punishment, because security isn't the punishment. The end goal is you're trying to make your organization's maturity level better. For example, one thing that I like to put I've rolled it out multiple times is a phishing game where we take, and we do have the defense in depth. We have for our business email, we have all sorts of filtering, so we don't get a lot of attempts that come through. However, I open it up to personal email as well. So if you get a ridiculous phishing attempt or some obvious scam, don't click on anything, but take a screenshot and then submit it. And then every quarter or so, I pick out the top 10 or top 5 that I find are the best, and then present them, and we all look at them, make fun of them, laugh at them, and then do a poll. And the one that's voted the most ridiculous, that person gets a little gift card. So the benefits of that is not only are we having fun, people are intentionally looking out for it. Like, hey, this might not be, submit it. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dragos, it's a cybersecurity company. They had an employee that hasn't started yet. He passed the interview. He was about to be onboarded. His personal email, I don't know if it's Gmail, whatever, but his personal email, not company, got compromised. They pretended that the attackers pretended that they were this employee, and they were able to go through the onboarding process and get access to whatever data from Dragos they had. And Dragos did a fantastic job of saying, this is what was breached. We have our back in place, so not a lot of things are compromised, but good lessons learned. So a company got compromised because an employee or a future employee's personal email. So you're asking yourself, hey, what's in this for me? I'm just an intern. Why do I have to go through all of these? You're not just protecting the business itself. I mean, that is your bank account, your information that can be stolen, your identity, your social media, etc. And if your company is taking that extra step to not only train you on how to protect the company, but you yourself, I mean, that's pretty huge.
AJ, anything you want to add to that one?
Josh covered it pretty well, to be honest with you. So, I mean, training is definitely the most important component. People are the weakness. I mean, they're the component, right? And where you draw the line, Josh made a good point. You talk about, personal email accounts now, right? And I think, we talked about that for the last few years. Like, where are we going to draw the line where security goes? Where does corporate security end? Where does personal security start? How far can we go? How far do people want us to go? I think you may see a scenario where some companies are willing to just offer to secure an entire home network as well, but it'll come down to whether an employee is good with that. But I think, it's an interesting case. You mentioned the Dragos case. Rob Lee he's the CEO over there, and he was very open about this, right? He made a very public story about it, which was good. He showed what they did, which I thought was great transparency. And yeah, it did show there's vulnerabilities there that are hard to control. But I think the big one you talked about, I guess I'll go back to the training, right? You said you have 3 screens and you keep one off on the side. So I happen to have a few screens as well over here. And I also will shove one to the side. I even go a step further sometimes. A lot of those trainings, they're designed so you can also just pull the script. Like, oh, well, maybe I can't do audio video because, I don't see very well. And believe me, I don't. You can go ahead and just pull the script and scan right through it and click end and you're done. Like I finished annual training in 8 seconds. I haven't taken annual trainings for most trainings in years. I'm not proud of it. Well, maybe I am because I'm saying it. But it's a problem, right? Is that people aren't taking these trainings, which means they are not internalizing the threat. They're checking the box and moving on. And companies are happy to let that happen because now they've checked the box. So if something bad happens, they go, well, we did what we were supposed to do. We're all compliant. But you weren't really trying to make the company safe. You were trying to do the minimal thing to be compliant. And I think this has to be internalized. People have to internalize the threat, not be panicked and paranoid and afraid. But you have to understand that threats exist all the time, that you are the target. Like, people are the target. It's just the opposite of what I said before about if you see something amazing in your inbox, you're probably just not that important. When it comes to being targeted, you are. Like, people are the target. And so assume nothing is safe, frankly. Just double check a lot of things to make sure that you're paying attention, because adversaries are always looking for new ways in. Phishing is worth 80%, I think, of all attacks still come out of phishing. The training we give is garbage in a lot of cases, or no offense to the training companies, by the way, it's the garbage is the way we choose to consume it. There's ways to just skip by it. The training itself is awfully pretty good, but I don't know many people actually go through it. I think you just need to have it as a regular part of life. It just needs to be built in. This is not an annual training. We should just be doing ongoing training. And I think Josh makes a good point also about gamification. This isn't about getting people in trouble. I think it should go the opposite direction. Have a scoreboard. Who's doing the best? Let's have an opportunity to show who's winning. And if you're not, you just get retrained. Like, it doesn't have to be, this huge negative thing. I mean, I suppose if somebody's consistent, you get a pattern where you're just never going to get it. Maybe you're at risk. Maybe we take you off the computer and put you in a corner someplace and let you play with something else for a while. But I think, you get a little timeout, but I think otherwise, it's just about let's work on the positive. Do it by teams. Hey, this month we're going to have a competition. Which team did the best at identifying and reporting phishing? Is it marketing? Is it sales? Is it make it a competition? Make it individuals. Make it teams. Build it in as a culture, but as fun a culture as it can be. And the annual trainings maybe aren't even needed. I don't know. Maybe they're thrown in because there's some compliance thing, but they aren't doing it. I can't think of anybody who honestly thinks annual training is making them smarter or safer. It's just checking boxes. So I think you need to do something where it actually changes the culture, not just a box you get to check off every year.
So Rick had a question here that I think fits nicely here. Any easy, cheap, and fast ways to upgrade those boring trainings into boring and ineffective? He kind of had a double there, into more effective training. Is there better ways to engage? I think we talked about that a little bit with the whole gamify it or take it out of the training material and put it into more interactive experiences beyond the training module, right? If all of those boring trainings are all you have budget for, I mean, are you stuck?
It's interesting. You got to think outside the box. And so I'll hypothesize, I guess. So if that's all we had for training, right, and I actually cared, at least for my team, right, I probably can't fix everything in an entire company. I might just have like a team lunch and pull things together and do a contest even in there. Like, hey, let's run through the training together. We'll get a whiteboard up. We'll, run back and forth and try to, keep score of who's doing right and who's right. I might take the effort to do that, right? So at least my team, at least for the training itself, has a little more fun with it. Maybe comes up with, some better learnings out of it. Since I don't own the training program itself, I can't decide who's going to send us phishing emails when afterwards. But at least for that training, I can make it more useful and more interesting. At least ensure that my team actually does the training, which would be an improvement, I think, over a lot of them. It's tough though. I mean, if you actually run the training program, from a corporate standpoint, you could probably do the same thing. You could have an all hands, and you could turn this into a competition, right, again, team by team,
like a spot the fish at the start of the all hands or something. And
right, yeah, totally. I mean, there's opportunities to build this in. I just think this needs to be who you are all the time. Security is a mindset, it's a culture, and it just needs to be who you are. Whether it's phishing, other things as well, it just needs to be built in. This isn't something you bolt on. This is something that's just part of who you are.
I want to add one thing to that. I'm going to call you out a little bit on that. I get the budget thing, but with the, hey, it's all you have time for. I don't have time for anything else. It's something you need to make time for. And people who work in cybersecurity, how many times have we heard, yeah, we should roll out MFA, but we don't have time to, we don't have to. Yeah, we should implement EDR, but we don't have the time, we don't have the budget. And then you get hacked, and guess what? You have the time and the budget for it. So these things need to be done. It magically appears. So you can make the time. Like, we're all busy. I'm extremely busy in my position, but these are things that are important enough that we need to build the culture on, and we need to take the time to do, because a little preventative maintenance goes a long ways in preventing way more work. If you have a ransomware or a successful phish, you're preventing that workload. You're having it, or even exponentially decreasing it if you take a little time to gamify, think outside the box, partner up with your marketing. Everyone loves company swag. I'm looking at my desk here at home. I got 10 pieces of swag from various vendors and companies. Get your vendors involved. They're more than happy to give out swag. Everyone loves a little swag. So yeah, get some swag, come up with a game. It doesn't cost you anything more. It might take a little bit of time, but like AJ said, it needs to be in the culture. It needs to be something that's ingrained with you.
All right. So for those who have tried to up their game, I know there's examples out there of, hey, that was a really unfair phishing attempt. Like, seriously, like nobody could guess that. Like, here's an example. The time that the security team got me, it was a quarterly all hands pre-email from the CFO. And I was so busy looking at the fact that, hey, here's the details about the financials update we're going to be giving. Take a look at this before the call. And I'm, leading one of our product teams for a whole large chunk of our portfolio. And I'm like, oh, crap. What are people going to be asking me questions about when these slides flash on screen? I clicked and I got phished by the security team. It was really well done. Once I looked back there, I'm like, oh, yeah, there were 3 things I should have spotted right away. But you're like tunnel vision because they got a topic that you were like laser focused on immediately. So let me put this one to you guys. Is there a fair phish versus an unfair phish out there?
Everything's fair. Everything's fair. The adversaries don't care about you.
Bad guys don't care.
The adversaries don't care about your feelings. Everything's fair. I will say there are things that I think I personally wouldn't advocate for because they might just be cruel, but they're all fair. Like, I don't think there's anything that's off the table unless the bad guys decide there is, and they haven't yet. Personally, I got popped. It's been a while now. I got popped a couple years ago. I've only, knock on wood, I've only been popped when it's on my phone. They never get me when I'm on my computer. When it's on my phone, I'm generally more of a hurry. I got popped my last job, actually, because, the topic was just at the exact right time. It was something I was already working on. I don't know if they knew that or they cheated, so to speak, because they knew exactly what I was working on and they really, really got solid on it, or they just got lucky. I don't know, but it was still fair. And I didn't examine it closely enough because it was exactly the thing I was looking for at the time I was looking for it. So I clicked on it, but everything's fair. The only thing that I think I've seen people struggle with, which I do too, is, if corporate layoffs are coming, and I've seen security use that and, send the form email out that suggests you've lost your job. That is fair. Just, I don't think I would do it. I think it's cruel. I think it's a mistake.
A threat actor absolutely public knowledge, could and would use that, right?
Should, yeah, as long as it's public knowledge. Yeah. If the layoffs aren't public knowledge, then it's not fair. I guess it's out of bounds because it has to be something you think the adversary actually could do. If this is all internal knowledge and nobody knows layoffs are coming, you set a phishing campaign off impersonating that. Yeah, you're just trying to be a jerk. That's a stump the chump thing, and you're being cruel to people who aren't losing their jobs at a time when a lot of people are struggling. That would be wrong. But if it was publicly announced, the company's dropping 22% by Friday or whatever, yeah, it's fair. It's just lousy. I don't know that I would advocate for it. But if somebody did it, I wouldn't be able to cry foul either. Bad guys don't care about your feelings. You have to train the way you fight. You have to use the same rules of engagement that adversaries use. And in most cases, there are no rules of engagement. So yeah, it sounds horrible. I think you really warn your teams, you really do the training well, and you let them know it is not personal. This is work. We have to impersonate bad guys, and this is how bad guys behave. As a guy who came up in the military, in the government space, I mean, we're used to that. You do lots of trainings that impersonate bad guys that aren't cyber, some are real life. If anybody who ever went to SEER school, or survival school, which I did not attend, but I have friends who did, the horrible things they do to you at survival school, the mock torture and some of those things, they're pretty terrible. but they have to. Like, that's the whole point. They can't just go, well, we're just going to hit you with a pillow for an hour and then we'll call it good for training, because you're not prepared for the bad things that might actually happen. You train the way you fight.
Josh, any additions?
No, I mean, I would say, yeah, there's immoral phishing campaigns testing, but definitely not unfair. There's other tactics you can use, especially if you publicly announce layoffs. Hey, tell your team, if the unfortunate event happens and you are the ones, this is the communication you will receive. If you don't receive it from this very specific medium of communication, then please don't click on anything. So again, there are ways to raise awareness without sending a fake phishing email saying you're being laid off, because that's just terrible. And we're all people. I want to make my team and the rest of the people in the company as with security on their mind. I don't want them to paint me as the bad guy. Like, that's not my goal. We all need to work together. So by doing these immoral phishing campaigns just to get people to click on it, that just makes me look bad. And that's not the direction I want to go. So I wouldn't personally do it. But yeah, there's nothing off the table for the bad guys.
If you do choose to do one of those more extreme cases of mock phishing attempts, I would say clear it with the right people first. We're not condoning that.
Yeah, and then order a dunk tank at the company picnic, and you better be prepared to.
Everybody who took that one to heart is going to be winding up with the best accuracy in the world.
Yep.
I missed. Okay, I'm
definitely don't. Definitely don't be looking for any favors from anybody. Like, it's. I mean, as Josh said, it's a team game out here. We're not. The goal isn't to win. The goal isn't to get them. It's to train people, right? So if you get so ruthless that you're just dying to win, you're going to have a really lousy relationship with the rest of the company, which isn't going to serve anybody particularly well. So yeah, I agree. I think it's immoral. That's not a campaign I would advocate for or support. But if somebody said they're going to do it, I also can't call it unfair. Those are two different topics, right? Everything's fair. Some things just are unkind and probably unnecessary, but everything's fair. So
we got a question from Meredith. She works for a major retailer in the corporate office. Her executive team came in with a CISA bulletin last year on APT 29 targeting embassies and NGOs with spearphishing attacks. All right, so we're playing in nation state level sophistication now, right? He wanted to know what she had lined up to train people not to click. I mean, you're dealing with APT level sophistication here, so obviously they're probably going to be a notch above already, right? I guess, would you do anything differently here than we've already kind of advised?
Did I hear correctly, Meredith, that she works at the front office of a retail company, and the CISA product was about APTs attacking embassies?
Yes. Yeah. So we've got a C-level executive that read a headline and is like, "My God, this sounds pretty bad. Are we prepared for this?" Right?
I would explain to the C-level why this is not a priority. I think people get really wrapped up on the APTs and on the nation states. And I'm not suggesting nation states are something to ignore. I mean, they're the most sophisticated out there, are pretty much the nation states, right? But know if you're on the target list. Know if this is a top priority that you need to worry about. Nobody has enough time or energy or budget or people to stop everything. So you have to have prioritization. If I'm a retailer, like APT 29 is on my list of things to worry about today. There's a whole lot of criminal enterprises out there that I'd be much more concerned about, going after us. I'm worried about ransomware. I'm worried about business email compromise. I'm worried about skimmers. I'm worried about, customer data and credit card data. None of that's going to APT 29. So, I think, you got to be polite. Obviously, if a C-level brings this to you, you can't, don't be rude. They don't particularly like that. But you have to find a polite way to explain prioritization, Intel requirements and how we prioritize things. And that while this is interesting, this is probably not going to make it to the top of our list of things to worry about. This adversary does not target us.
Right. So to that point, it probably goes back to that, what type of organization are you, and are you training on the most likely attempts to be coming at you? If you're a legal firm, you better be covering BECs, right? If you're a retailer, skimmers, QR code scanning, like those types of things, absolutely more likely to come up there. I think tailoring that to the type of organization are and the type of phishing attempts you can likely see there is probably a good way to go. Yeah.
The other thing I would liken it to, and one of the things that I guess in my region that we have had to worry about in the energy sector is the increase of people that are shooting up like the transformers or the energy grid. So if you see that headline and it's like, okay, well now these substations need 24/7 monitored guard and fenced perimeters, and now your CEO of the retail side goes, oh man, this is like these people are coming after us. Like, let's get a guard, let's put up these barricades. It's like, yeah, you could, but you're going to get much more bang for your buck by focusing on things like you said, the skimmers or the BECs, the ransomware. Yeah, those are out there and they're scary. I mean, really, at the end of the day, if somebody really wants to get in your business, I mean, with those advanced threats, it's just a matter of time. But you have to prioritize what you're protecting.
Yeah, don't chase the shiny object. Just because it's the thing that gets all the news and all the story doesn't mean it really affects you. People get really wrapped up on the shiny objects, the things that are very flashy and exciting and new and sexy that may have very little or nothing to do with them. When the mundane thing is the thing they should constantly worry about, like phishing, for instance, 80% of all attacks, as I said, coming through phishing. I think this speaks to a bigger point that we deal with a lot, that I've dealt with for years now as an Intel guy, is organizations that don't have Intel requirements. They don't really know what they do or don't need and how it affects them. If you don't have Intel requirements, everything's going to look very interesting and scary, and you'll just chase a lot of those objects all over the place. If you have Intel requirements and you really understand what matters to you, what adversaries are most likely to come after you, what are your crown jewels, things of that nature. There's a lot more to it. But then you really are in a better position to say confidently, this is something we can deprioritize. Because it is very hard to tell leadership what not to worry about when it's all over the news. So I have often told people Intel's job is to tell you what matters. It's also to tell you what doesn't matter, because you can't get through everything. So you've got to be able to give justification for deprioritizing. If this is the top news story on all the news channels, and you tell the CISO we're not going to worry about it, you're going to have to explain that a little bit more thoroughly, I assure you. But if you're able to come in and explain in detail, this adversary only goes after these types of targets for this kind of content. They've only been known to use this kind of tool against this kind of vulnerability. And we don't have those targets. We aren't one of those targets. We don't have that content. We don't have that vulnerability against the software we don't even have. Then they're going to go, okay, I get it. They're going to get it. These are really, really smart people that we work for and with. But you're going to have to give them the answer. You can't just say, don't worry about it, boss. That's not going to work. But if you walk them through it, they're going, oh, yeah, I get it. Because they also know they have more work on a daily basis than can be accomplished. They like the idea of being told not to worry about a thing. They just want to make sure you're right. Because if you don't worry about it and bad things happen, people forget about you. They remember that person up at the top there that's got to be talking to the board.
Yep, and all those news outlets. I mean, they need that sexy link and that clickbait to generate the links and the views, and that's what your APT and that's what your super scary things you're going to get. Tricking Rhonda in accounting to click on a phishing email. It's not going to generate too many links or clicks.
All right, so we're going to wind down the conversation here with a little bit more. How do we defend against different types of phishing attempts? So one of the things that comes up a lot, and I'm guessing you guys are hearing this too, is I've got all these different ways that social engineering attacks can come at my people. How do I best protect against this? So email attacks. I've got my work email. I've got my personal email. Josh, you brought up that Drago's point about the fact that onboarding users' personal email was the account that got compromised, right? We can't worry about just our work accounts. All right. Work account, personal account. You guys probably both at home today doing this recording, right? You got your personal machine, you got your work machine. You might have a room full of work machines there if you guys are, got the arsenal of geeked out systems that you want to play with on a regular basis, right? So we got a lot of systems, and most people aren't at your level of sophistication with their home security. You've got your mobile phones, your tablets, your landlines. All those can be ways that an attacker could be coming at you with different types of attempts. Browsers, email apps, social media apps, SMS texting, phone calls. That's not a complete list, but pretty extensive, right?
Yeah, unless you get into IoT,
right?
You've got all those.
Yeah, that very good point. Thanks, AJ. You just blew out the whole world.
I got like 40
IoT.
of those in my house we can add in there. Yeah, IoT. You want all the thermostats and smart appliances and switches and plugs and all that too. Sure, TVs.
So, you can try to target and prioritize and defend at all of those things, right? Passwordless authentication. All right, I can't take the the person out of the equation, but maybe I can take the piece that the attacker's after. If I can take a password away, that's one way to, simplify things a little bit, right? I guess as we wrap up here, the final question I'm going to put to each of you is, when you look at all the different ways phishing attempts could come at our employees, the people that we're trying to protect and the organizations we're trying to protect, what are some of the kind of the top things that they can focus on to mitigate a lot of this risk? Obviously, there's no eliminating phishing risk from your environment. There's just too many different ways. But we'll kind of wrap up on that, giving everybody watching today a little bit of guidance as to where they can try to focus or prioritize strategically going forward. All right, on that, I'm going to wrap up with you first, AJ.
Oh man, I was hoping he was going to pick on Josh first. Just going to piggyback on this one.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, let's go for it. So, I mean, it's a good question, right? So obviously, we've hit on training over and over again. I'm sure I could, cheat and say, hey, training, and that's true. But, beyond that, certainly you want to actually have the technologies in place. There's plenty of great technologies can be integrated into your email system that will limit what's coming at your employees. People are the problem, right? That's just the truth. So they're the weakest link. So the less things you give people to process, the better off you're going to be. You mentioned passwords. I think that's a good point. There's two ways to go there: either two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, and not through SMS, like actually through another authenticating tool. That's really good. I think the end of passwords is coming. So yeah, when you talk about like hard tokens and passwordless, I think that's probably the next place that things are going to go, which would be nice and certainly improve on things. I think, again, being able to challenge business email compromise is my own personal favorite. Like that's the subset of phishing where massive amounts of damage come. So for me, I talk about that one and just say, all you have to do is build a different culture. I say that like it's easy, but build a different culture and build a process. You have to have a culture where it's okay to challenge leadership, at least in that environment. I'm not saying go run up and yell at the CEO about everything, but it has to be an understood thing that when it comes to money being moved, nobody is above reproach. You have to have a system of challenges in place, a daily password, whatever it's going to be. And nobody is above reproach. I don't care if you're really the CEO and you forgot it. I still can't give you the thing you want. That's just the rules, right? That's a really old school technique. It's been around for hundreds and thousands of years, frankly, just a daily password, something like that, daily code. But that's a challenge that will stop a lot of those things, right? So business email compromise to me is the one I care the most about. It costs the most. It seems like it's one that's easy to solve, but it takes a culture. I don't care if you're the lowest intern, brand new on the job, first day, all the way up, to the top of the line. When it comes to big money moving within the company, you got to have a policy that goes across everybody. Everybody has to be comfortable being able to challenge leadership there. That would greatly reduce that one. So, I mean, if it was one thing I could do, if I ran a company, it's the one thing I would implement tomorrow is a new process and policy for challenging anything that was a payment over whatever the dollar amount is. I want 10 grand or whatever. And it's immutable. And I don't care if you're a board member. I don't care if you're a billionaire. Don't care. You can't get around it. I would instantly end business email compromise for my company. I'd start with that one.
Awesome. Josh.
Yeah, I'll focus more on the personal side since AJ kind of went more the business side. Because, in your personal life, like you said, we have 80 different devices and things like that. And, it's like constant vigilance, like how much of your time and energy can be dedicated to thwarting these phishing attacks because you're constantly being surrounded from them. And there is that security versus convenience trade-off. I'm sure unless you're super into networking, you're not going to have a firewall at your home where you can do different VLANs and segregate them like you should, but obviously the normal user probably isn't going to do that. They don't care that much. They got their ISP router that has all of their things on it. They have their one email. So MFA, multi-factor authentication, is the simplest method. It doesn't take that much more time to even get a code. I mean, SMS isn't the most secure version, but it's better than nothing. Having that in place, the Authenticator app would be nice. I personally, I have like 10 or so emails, but I really have two personal ones. I have, my like a Gmail one that I use for things that I know, like as far as like personal engagements, things like that. And then I have my old Yahoo one that I made when I was like 14. That's the one that goes to the businesses. That's the one where I know this is going to get spammed. So I don't even check that one. I use it for logins, or if I need to sign up to see something, like that's the one I give away because it's completely segregated. Having different passwords for everything, using a password manager. Make sure you do your research, because there are some that are much better than others and some that haven't been compromised 3 times over the last 5 years. But you do your diligence, get a password manager, because then you can have unique passwords for everything. It's going to happen. There's breaches. You can read about them every day. If you Google data breaches, there's pages full of them. So if you have a different password for every site and one of your sites gets breached, you're fine, because cool, they have it for that. So that would be my biggest thing, is just try to segregate a little bit, use an MFA, and try to use a password manager, different passwords for everything. Those are simple steps that don't require a lot of afterthought, to just do some simple ground rules on preventing successful like phishing or personal compromise.
Awesome. And again, I think the one kind of universal that works across all of those different ways they can come at you is still training. I think, we hit on that topic quite a bit today, and definitely make it a cultural thing. I can't stress that enough. I being a, security minded person in general, it's been great talking to both of you today. I think we covered a lot of ground. It was interesting. I hope you all enjoyed it as well. Again, all those assets that we talked about throughout are available to you in the On24 platform right now. And again, if you missed any of this, you're going to be able to catch it after the fact. On that note, AJ, Josh, thank you both for joining us here today. And everybody else, we'll talk to you next time.